Hello, everyone. Good morning and happy Friday. You're with the 12th episode of HeleCloud Talks Cloud, or as I like pretending, it's last week this morning with Walter and Lina. I'm trying to be funny because it's like John Oliver's show, but about cloud, but still funny. And we have two guests, Dominic Shoosmith and Adrián Moreno, who is also Adrián Moreno Peña, like Inspector Peña from Narcos. So we had a nice little conversation about drugs before the show started. As I like saying, say perhaps to drugs, not a definite yes or no. Keep an open mind. Say perhaps. So, Dominic, do you want to say something about yourself, and then I'll let Inspector Peña do the same.
Yeah. Hi guys, thanks for having me. So Dominic here. I've been in the industry for nearly 20 years now. My background's mostly around infrastructure. I've worked across financial services, pharmaceutical, media, consulting, gaming. So I've been around the block a bit, and yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. And Adrián?
So me, a part of the drug inspector, that's a side gig. That is when I'm undercover. Like on the day-to-day, I'm working at Bamov, a smart bike manufacturer. I have been working there for 1 year and a half, and we have been moving to the cloud. We have been moving to AWS. So that sounds quite catchy, moving bikes to the cloud. And I really like DevOps. I really like technology and all the spectrum. So very excited to be joining today for to talk a little bit about the industry and the state of things.
We're really happy to have you as well. We have an interesting set of topics aligned. Walter, which one should we start with first?
Let's start with the top. The first one is CDK Day. It's not necessarily a topic per se, as it is an event that's coming up, and I think we should put some attention on it. It's a day that Amazon focuses on the CDK, the Cloud Development Kit, and there's some interesting sessions there, and I will go there and hope to have my mind changed that CDK is a good idea to begin with.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Because I have mixed feelings as well. And the first time someone used a CDK here in HeleCloud, everyone else was like, "What is this? Are we doing this now?" Because we've been doing Terraform and stuff before. So
I think it's a bad idea, really. I mean, I've not heard of CDK. I've got to be honest, but I've had a look through it, and being able to share their input with the community and hold some sessions around what works, what doesn't work, talk about lessons learned and stuff like that. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm very much a person that's, don't wed yourself to a specific tool or framework, if you like, and listen to what other people are doing, and it very much depends on the use case. So for me, I'm interested. I think I'm going to join some of the sessions and see what I can certainly learn. And again, I think the benefit of the CDK is that they're not wedded to a specific language or framework, as I said. So, join. If you get something out of it, great. And if you don't, then it's fine. So I think that tends to be my philosophy on these types of things.
Thank you, Adrián.
So for us, in Bamov, we were starting from scratch with cloud 1 year ago or something like that. So we started using CDK. We have given it a go. We are using it in many projects, and we're using it quite successfully. We're happy with it. It's true that it's not multi-cloud. So if we would be using resources in other providers, that wouldn't be such a good fit. But for us, the main advantage is that it's less verbose than a Terraform template. Like it's more compact, repetition, like the environments, for example, you can use variables, you can use if conditions, you can use loops. Things like that. It feels quite straightforward. The learning curve is quite flat for developers because it's not learning anything new. It's just coding in the language that they are coding already: TypeScript, Python, Java. So for us, it was just okay. Use TypeScript and treat the cloud as if it was another part of your project. And then the learning curve has been really flat. It has been really easy for them to understand and start using it. Of course, it has the rough edges are mostly around CloudFormation. It's not CDK itself, but CDK as a framework and as a set of libraries is really interesting. And the open source development that Amazon is doing around it is quite interesting. Like, you can get involved with the developers, you can open tickets, and the community is relatively active. So when in the end you have all the power of CloudFormation behind. When CDK doesn't get, then you can still stretch with CloudFormation with some second level structs that let you access the raw power of Amazon. So it's not multi-cloud, and it's not the winning, it's not the preferred choice if you are already doing cloud, because you probably are using Terraform. But it's interesting for companies like us that we were starting.
I think that there's a combination. From my personal conclusion is a combination of what Dominic and what Adrian are saying. I think that for a company like Van Moof, which is a singular unit that has a set of developers that want to talk to cloud in the language that they know, it's a good choice. What I see though is that for let's say enterprise environments where infrastructure management is not the primary workload of people, it's actually really tough, because there you have you have developers, the front 10% who can easily learn this stuff and explore it and get creative with it. But then you have the long tail of people that kind of every once in a while need to interact with it, and for them it's really difficult because they don't necessarily know TypeScript or Python or whatever. And for someone who has no CDK experience, and for someone who has no Terraform experience, Terraform is probably easier to kind of know, hey, if I change this little instance type into another instance type, it'll probably just do that one instance and not change anything else in my my infrastructure. And with CDK, that can potentially be a bit more tricky, because you can use full constructs of a programming language, and so very
also,
much
I think,
on the in between.
Yeah, I think developers have a really small learning curve with Terraform, and operations guys find Terraform easier than CDK. So I think in the end, maybe everyone finds Terraform a little bit easier to start with. Plus, anything that does not involve CloudFormation is my preference.
Yes, I mean that is really the downside of CDK, because when you get weird errors, it's not going to be a library error, it's going to be a CloudFormation error, and then try to decipher what they mean. Yeah,
exactly. So we have a topic here that is not strictly cloud, but is something interesting that we wanted to touch upon. It's about Facebook hiring scandal, where allegedly Facebook did not hire Black employees because they were not a culture fit.
I think that what we discussed before the session is that it's a widespread problem in the entire industry. This one made the news because it has the word Facebook in it. But you can replace Facebook for pretty much any company, and unfortunately, this is still today a big part of the industry. And I think that it's something that we continuously need to put under people's attention in order to slowly start changing it. I think that if I look at myself personally, we've been on a journey for probably at least a decade to get better at diversity and at how to say that, acknowledging in myself that there are certain prejudices that I don't necessarily am very proud of, but they are there, and I need to work actively to work against that. And this has it's not limited to race or religion or gender or any of those things. It's very simple and easy and unnoticeable to fall down to identifying with people who happen to look the same, believe the same and are the same as you. And I think that's really what is at the core of this issue, that in order to build a good, diverse team, you need to actively take steps to get out of that line of thinking. And I think that in the Netherlands team in HeleCloud, we kind of got lucky.
Don't have a single person who, apart from you, I think, who was born in the Netherlands.
Nick is born in the Netherlands, yeah. But
yes, people now.
It's a historical thing. So we realized this was before we joined HeleCloud, that the Netherlands rules for skilled immigrants are really good. And our company happens to fit that type of role very nicely. So we recruited worldwide, and so at some point we had people from Iran, Saudi Arabia. Over the last decade, we had people from Iran, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Israel, Brazil, US, Australia, literally all over the place. And even though we were a small team, that led to automatic kind of diversity that we didn't necessarily have to think about. But I see in the wider HeleCloud that the average shade of skin is pretty pale, to be honest.
Lighter, yes.
Yeah, this is something that we need to actively work on.
There's another side to it as well, which is neurodiversity. And how accepting companies are of people who are not normal. As someone who has a background in psychology, I'm very attached to this topic, and it has been proven time and time again that autistic people fit greatly in our industry. They already work there, most of them, without having been diagnosed, a lot of them. But there's other not neurotypical people that are just, they don't interview well. And you can see a person like that who has like social anxiety, but is going to be a great developer or infrastructure engineer, but he will or she will never pass the interview.
I think it's a lot about breaking the biases of the organization, because by default we are going to be looking for people that, as Walter was saying, like look like us, that have the same studies, that have the same background. So in general, like diversity makes the workplace, well, first of all, more interesting because it's more diverse. You have diversity of opinions. So you're going to have the end result, the conversation is going to be more kaleidoscopic. So it's going to be more interesting. And the results are also going to be usually stronger because you consider the voices that usually are left out of the room where the decisions are taken. And of course, it's easy for me to say I'm a white male in technology with scientific, with university studies. So I'm privileged. I'm the one that is in the sitting position and can take the decisions on who enters this world and who doesn't enter. And we need to be aware of the privilege that we have, and that it's not only just because let's be good to the other people, let's be nice. We need to be inclusive, because otherwise we are creating products for our ivory tower when we are excluding women, we're excluding people from other racial backgrounds, other studies, other socioeconomic backgrounds. That those people need to be in the conversation because they need to be users of our product. And if there's nobody that represents them, and it's not okay that I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to think like a woman, and I'm going to, set up how they are going to perceive the product. How about you hire a woman and put her in the room? Yeah, hire a woman and put her in the room so she can say how she perceives the product, and she has the empathy with the users that are going to think like her. We need to be inclusive to create universal products.
I guess it's extra interesting in your case because your company makes an actual physical product, a bicycle, which at least here in the Netherlands, traditionally bicycles for women are very differently designed than for men. And there, I didn't even think about that, but there, it's absolutely the case that you need to make sure that you design for everyone. Otherwise, you're going to have a unconscious bias in your product design that it's easy to forget if you don't put effort and attention on it. Even
small things like, for example, age, that can be another bias. We want to work with people that are in our age spectrum because they think, but as VanMoof is getting a more mature company and we are expanding the kind of people that we are selling to, so it's not only the daring people that are going to buy a technological product when it's not so proven and everything, then our customer range expands and we're going to have people of older age that, well, maybe they need a more usable web, because they are not so used to all the fancy animations that we are using and so on. They need a bigger font size. There needs to be somebody that represents them. And yes, you can try to play like, okay, I'm going to think like a person that has vision problems and has mobility. How about you get somebody that is also of an older age in the company, and you can invite them and be a focus group and do the beta testing and so on. It's easier to just be diverse.
Yeah, the best companies I've worked for are definitely the ones that are much more diverse, right? I think a lot of companies nowadays take it a lot more seriously. I think one thing I have seen though is that, just to sort of flip it on the other side a little bit, is some companies are so pro-diversity that they will oftentimes end up sort of inadvertently creating their own racial discrimination. So they could have sort of talent development programs aimed at the ethnic minorities, for example, which actually racially discriminates, certain types. So you have to be careful, and there are certain companies. I think there was something I read a while back. I think it might have been Microsoft, where I think there was an article saying that we need to fill a quota of certain ethnic minorities in senior positions, which is wrong, right? That's racial discrimination. So it's how do companies tread that really careful line, I suppose, in making sure that they are inclusive and they are diverse, but they're not actually creating a problem in the process. So it's a very difficult thing to do. But also agree with Walter's point about unconscious bias as well. And again, just through sort of training and education and coaching, it's just making sure that the people that are in the position of hiring, to make sure that they understand and that they're trying to take that subconscious, bring it to the fore, and so that they can consciously evaluate someone. If you say someone, are they a cultural fit? You should be able to define that cultural fit independent of race, religion, and everything else, and have a set of criteria defined so that you can assess that objectively. And I think that's the challenge, right? And it can be quite hard to do sometimes.
Sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes it's really simple. This is the funny part I've noticed. Sometimes all it needs is one person to speak up and say, like, hey, how about we also consider some other point of view instead of just the one that we have all said yes on. And this boils down back to what Lena was saying. The different neurotypes is, from my perspective, also definitely a diversity thing, because when you put different neurotypes in a room, obviously the alphas are going to have lots of stuff to say and
be louder.
If you're not and if you're not careful, they'll get the overhand, and you won't hear from the people who are silent but actually have things to say. They're just not necessarily naturally inclined to speak up. And, I think that's it's something to be aware of as well. And I've seen some quite nice. I'm in a DevOps Days organization for DevOps Days Amsterdam, and one of the things they did there is that by not asking a question in a group like this, hey, who has an idea of how to do X, Y, and Z, but instead using some online tool that where you ask everyone to write down what do you think we should do with X, Y, and Z. Now all of a sudden you get a much more balanced view, because everybody gets to have a say instead of just the people who are the first ones to speak up. I think that's those are small things we can do to make things a little bit better, and then hopefully iterate from there. But let's not spend too much time on this topic, because it's something that we can talk about for hours. On the topic of being nice to each other, I guess a big court case got settled when was it? Somewhere in the last couple of weeks. The court, the case of Google versus Oracle, and I guess Google, quote unquote, won. And it's about some plagiarizing of Java, and ultimately it boiled down to something like 10,000 lines of code that they said, "Oh, you stole these from us," and yada yada, etc., etc. And it looks like Google won the case. So it's quite interesting how these really large, when we touched on this a few weeks ago with the JEDI projects, interesting how these large court cases can be held up in court mitigating for years and years and years. I guess this is the final ruling, because it's the highest court in the US that decided this now. So hopefully we can put this to rest.
It's been on since 2014.
Yeah. And it's like, all in all, it's like, from a technological point of view, it's like, how can you say that if it's an expose API, it's not implementation? How can you say that that has a copyright? It's something that, well, that was quite an interesting twist, from Oracle, to just try to cash out on Google, because basically this came down to Oracle being kind of, we are not getting any money from Android. Google is using Java in Android. We are going to somehow get our hands in that pot. And the case that they found is like, okay, it's the public APIs. They have used the same SDK. They have used the same method signatures. But if you think about that as a technologist, it's like, it's only the table of contents of the book, but you're not copying the book. How can you say that they have plagiarized the work that you have done? It was not so intuitive, but somehow they have found a way that they can go all the way to the Supreme Court. But I think it might be also interesting for other projects that are going to replicate functionalities that are just, let's say, like Mono was doing with .NET. Now it was bought by Microsoft and everything, but it could also be the same case. It's like, you couldn't, if they would have ruled in favor of Oracle, you wouldn't be able to provide an alternative implementation of an SDK or a standard or a library or things like that, just based on the public signatures, even if it's something that is open and ready to be used and so on. So I think it's still good for, with my limited understanding of legality and so on, but I think it's still good for technology that you can swap the implementation of something. You can just take the signatures of the methods and you can re-implement it in a way that you want and create an alternative version.
Yeah, it's funny that this is the second giant lawsuit that includes Java. I guess back in the days, there was a giant lawsuit from Sun Microsystems against Microsoft when Sun was still owning Java, and these are two landmark cases that get talked about decades later. So I think we'll see the effects of this for quite a while to come in this industry. I'm curious to see what the effects of it are.
Well, short-term effects are that the shares of both Oracle and Google rose by 4% after the court case. So
everyone wins.
Everyone wins, yeah.
It's like after election day, like every party has won. So after court day, everyone wins.
We have a few more minutes left. I wanted to touch on another article regarding large industry movements, and that is US adding Chinese supercomputing entities to their economic blacklists. You see, and this is a thing that we keep coming back to. The power struggle between US and China seems to be ongoing. there was a meeting that had nothing to do with IT or anything like that a couple of weeks ago between high-ranking Chinese and American officials, and they were basically mudslinging at each other in front of a press conference. And these kind of movements that we see here is, to me, it's worrying because it all depends on your point of view, what seems right and what seems wrong. And it's mostly just it seems to be a relatively basic eye for an eye kind of situation. I compare this with fighting toddlers. Look, if you cannot play with my toy, if I cannot play with your toy, then you cannot play with my toy. Only then on a global macroeconomic level. And
well, people tend to regress to strategies that have worked in the past. So it's normal to regress to a strategy that worked for you when you were a toddler.
And all in all, it's a trade issue that they have at a way bigger scale. So of course, technology is a big export of China. It's a big export and import also from the US. So yeah, it happened already with DJI with the drones. It happened with chip manufacturers, Huawei, that is there in the limbo of can I sell in Europe? Can I sell in the world? Because all in all, like that's the bad part. It could be like a disagreement between two countries, but that has consequences all over the world. Because as European Union, we kind of follow along on the US because it's our ally in so many things. But on the other side, we cannot survive without China for imports because we don't have a real industry. We don't have the production capacity to create everything that is being imported from China. So if at some moment China decides that, well, I don't export whatever it is right now to Europe, we would have a problem because we're going to run out of supplies.
Yeah, the Huawei one's an interesting one because that had an impact, certainly in the UK, affecting the rollout of 5G and stuff like that. So again, that's a mobile consumer service that many people are going to benefit from. And these kind of political games that get played at that level, they have quite a widespread impact. It's a shame, really. And all it does is it thwarts the innovation and the ability to do more with technology at the end of the day. So yeah, it's we see quite widespread impact on that across different layers. So it's an interesting one.
I think that the Huawei case is quite tricky because on the flip side, Huawei was very well known for going deal negative on telco infrastructure so that they could just win every single deal, not because they were making a profit off of it, but because they had the size and the state backing to not actually worry about the revenue. And that's basically buying market share. And I definitely also think that that's something we need to be very wary of because that defeats the movements of a free market where the competition where the best technology wins, not necessarily the one with the deepest pockets.
When it's about that, it's like, okay, fair enough. But then when it gets muddy, in muddy waters, and the US says like China is spying and they are spying because they are putting backdoors into devices. And then when you learn things like the NSA has been doing for quite a long time, like setting up backdoors in everywhere that they come, basically in Cisco, in routers, in operating systems, then it's like, how can you come with a clean face and say that China is worse when you are doing the same in a secret way? It's like, well, and here we are in the middle, of a trade war, and then we are like, we still need routers, we still need cloud infrastructure, we still need computing capacity, and we cannot produce everything in Europe. So
I guess what surprises me is that with Trump, the US-China relationship wasn't good, and now with Biden, it's not getting better.
Yeah, I guess
you're right.
It's finding the role of the US in where they are not ruling so much. China, of course, is growing so much economically with this a state-controlled economy, and they have so much hands in how they can move the country faster. When you are not full democracy, of course you can make things faster because you don't need to wait for agreement. And they are really, as the Western world would say, we are really finding a way to deal with this power struggle.
Speaking
Our time
of
is
powers, yeah, you guys.
We've spent our entire 30 minutes talking about not a lot of cloud today, but it was an interesting show and two very interesting guests. We normally give everyone 2 minutes to self-promote or promote an idea that they find dear to their heart. So, Adrian, you can go first, and then we'll go with Dominic.
So working for VAMOV, just consider people, wherever you are, consider cycling. It's good for the world. It's good for your body. The World Health Organization just had the World Bike Day this week. So just consider cycling, and electric bikes is a really power efficient way of being nice to the world and be nice to yourself. It's going to make you happier, and it makes the world greener. So consider bikes.
Cool. So from my side, again, not really here to sort of plug the company I work for, but what I would say is that I'm very much, passionate about helping older organizations or more traditional organizations move to the cloud and help them understand the benefits of doing so, not just from a technology perspective, but also around people and culture as well. So that's very dear to my heart, and that's particularly what I'm interested in these days. So that's my 2 pence.
Good. And I wanted to finish off with something as well. I have a new boss. Walter has been promoted to Chief Technology Officer at HeleCloud. So he's now my boss. Congratulations, Walter. Well-deserved promotions.
Yay.
And make us happy by fixing all of our problems, please, yesterday. Thank you.
Oh, I have a list. Don't worry. No, I'm really happy to make this promotion. It's we don't have enough time to go into it, but for me, it's a 20-year goal in my career to be a CTO for a company that's let's say over 100 people. So I'm really happy to be there, and I'm really excited to see how I can influence and affect more change at this company to make it even better than it already is. So quite excited about the months and years ahead.
Okay, enough now. Thank you, everyone, and have a happy Friday, a wonderful weekend, and see you again next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.